Good. I love having to try and look over my shoulder. And, well, just to show that hello, right? That works. That's the code from before. So we'll do that as a side. 01A. There we go. So we'll go with my online handle because that's how most people are going to look me up later, I'm sure. It says hello and howdy, exactly what we'd expect, right? So let's go back to our examples. And notice how this is written. Just take a quick note, right? Print hello, comma, person name. Print howdy, %s, person name, right? Now we're going to go to this next one. Same thing. Does anybody see the difference between this and this? If you have eyeglasses, I'm sure this sounds all too familiar, right? This and this. Number 2, very good. This is the number 2, because if you look at the top, the little magic line just says Python. This says Python 3. Now, the thing with Python, they've been moving to Python 3 for a long time, but not everyone converted. So they keep backporting or bringing back features from 3 into 2. But there are little differences, and we're going to see some of these. So if we do this again, right? Well, it's the same everything else, but the front one didn't do the same thing, did it? It's a minor change between how those functions are used, right? So we're going to come back here, look at this code again. And this is something that's unique in Python, right? I mean, in Ruby, things change a little bit. In Perl, well, we've been on Perl 5 for a long time. And things like this aren't as typical. But in Python, we're going to find there's a couple of these. And you have to be careful, because later in the talk, we're going to go talk about projects. Not all projects are either Python 2 or 3, right? They're not codified. So when you start in a project and you want to contribute, you got to ask this question up front: what am I writing in? Because the answer can make a big difference in whether your code is going to work or make some committer upstream absolutely hate your guts. Okay? So again, we're going to go from here. And did I miss one? No, that's it. Also, I just want to point out one thing here. This % symbol, if I say modulus, everybody in the room, like most of them raise their hands, they've scripted before. Modulus, everybody knows. Special case here in Python, that is actually an operator that it's an operator for the string specifically. So you don't have to use this in a print statement. I could go howdy, %s, %this, and assign that to a variable. So just a little aside, it's a little trick that you can use for using, they call it variable interpolation, right? It's where you have position holders inside of a string and you interpolate them in or bring them in and substitute. Because this could go on, I could have 5 or 6% s's and then 5 or 6 different variables I'm popping in there. This is just a very simple example to keep this easy for us. Now, this is, of course, variables with a string. It's great to have one, but we have containers. We call them lists, right? And this is a list in Python 3. You notice that there is an apple, an orange, and a banana, and a strawberry in my fruit basket. Not a big deal. And simple way to go through and print it, little Johnny ate whatever from the basket. Easy enough. We're going to do that here right now. Again, we are just going to go with list 01. Easy enough, right? Does exactly what we think. Takes our list, which we've built out of strings, prints them out. No problem. Now, here's the thing. We're going to do this again. And I'm going to play the part of a bad eye doctor again and say, look, right? Only one thing changed here. Can anybody tell me what it is? Can they see off the bat? Python 3, yep. But it's also, take a look at what's around this list, right? Square brace, parenthesis. Now, what? That's what I get for copy pasting this slide from the actual source code. So, you caught me. You caught me. So, I will show you. See? There it is. It'll work. So, we're going to do list 2. Same thing, right? Just what we expect. No loss of sanity, no weirdness. So we're going to change it up. I've got someone who restocks. They decided to put a plant in my basket. So lists you can append, right? Again, square braces, and append the plant in. So we're going to come back. We're going to do the same thing. I know everybody here is probably wondering, why do we keep doing the same thing over and over again? There we go, right? We appended. Now I have a plant in my basket. Not a big deal. So we're going to do it one more time with feeling. And I'm going to Alt-Tab, come back. Did I balance it on this? I balanced it on this screen. I don't know what I was thinking when I put that last slide together. Again, parentheses, right? Same thing. It's going to work, right? It's going to work. Who here believes it's going to work? Not a soul. My jokes are old. So, and my typing is even worse. List 04. Thank you. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Tuple, what's this? Well, see, I was lying before. When it's a parenthesis, it's not actually a list. It's actually this construct called tuple. Any old C programmers in here? Anybody? So the difference between a vector array and a struct, right? Same thing going on here. Think of it this way: if I've got any non-programmers, I know that I'm talking to Hangouts, so I don't know how many people are out there do this for a living. But the difference here is, think like a chain, and let's say a chain link is 12 links long, and you know it's 12 links long, then you can do things with that because you always know where things are in a position. You know what they're named. You can give it. It's at this position. It's whatever. It's set. It never moves. That's a tuple. A list is more like a chain you can add to, or a bag you can keep popping things into. It can be longer. It can be shorter. So when you deal with lists, one thing to keep in mind is your list could be empty. Your list could be longer than you think. And that's actually the source of more bugs than people want to care to admit. You know, they forget to, when there's 0, to handle that and not error out, or they iterate something out and the last 2 get lost because they set a fixed number. Say, oh no, it'll never be more than this. And somebody decide to use that module and have 14 pieces instead of 12. And now those last 2 pieces are always missed. So again, important thing to remember, right? Because square braces and parentheses are different in this case, different constructs. And we're going to come back here, right? One of the nice things with Python, it's a glue language, which means there's a lot of different libraries we can use. We're going to use one of the simplest ones. I used to be a data analyst, so mathematics is important to me. We're going to look at the math function. Real simple, right? Python, import math. All that little magic says is that we are importing the math library. It's exactly as it looks. We're going to print the ceiling. We're going to come back here for a second. We're just going to go through the slideware. Right? I can also say from math import ceil. Now you'll notice the difference here is when I say that, I can actually do print ceil 8.3. I don't have to call the math in front like I did here. I can just call it by its name, because what this is, they call it a namespace. For those of you who came from C++ or Java, namespaces are not anything new. You just put the name out in front. This way, if you have conflicting names, you can keep them separate and know what they are in the code for code readability, reusability. Now, we're going to come here and say, okay, well, this is the only library I have. Can I just do that? Anybody think this is going to work? Yeah, exactly. You can't get away with this. Some languages I've seen you can. You can actually do this if it's the only thing in the namespace. But there's not that concept here of a default namespace. So even though it's there, it's not going to show up. And we will demo that in code. I'm only going to demo the 2. Right? That's easy enough. Oh, we'll do 03. Did I do 03 or did I typo that? I can't see. I did 2. Okay. 3. And there you go. Right? So exactly what we expect. My Jedi mind tricks don't work on this audience. No one's going to buy it when I try and catch you, which is good. So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Pythonic ritual. Now, call it this because I was trying to go with the Star Wars gag. It didn't work, and so I apologize. I'm not that inventive. However, Python has these things called PEP, right? Python Enhancement Proposal. That's where the community talks about how to improve things, how to do things better. If you've been around, think RFC, request for comment, same idea, okay? The big one is PEP 8. Have to know this one. I'm gonna get some highlights here. Is things like four-space indentation. Things like variables and functions are lowercase with underscores. Instance methods are cap-cased. You know, every word is capitalized. And private class instance methods begin with a leading underscore. Basic stuff. There's a lot more in there, but again, it's an RFC, so there's a lot in there for you to consume and look at. If you're learning the language, right, this is the building blocks. We've looked at this. If you're learning the language, there's this lovely thing called PyDoc. It's the equivalent if you came from Ruby, RDoc, from Java, JavaDoc. I haven't used Java in a long while. Do they still have those web pages where you can just download the source and view the HTML and search it just locally? That's still there? Yeah. So it's the same idea. Now here's some interesting things though. You can use it on the command line with a keyword search. So for those of you who have been using Linux and Unix for a long time, you know the old apropos command, apropos some random keyword, you can go find what man pages are related. Same idea here, good old keyword search. But the interesting thing, you can also pipe it to a local port and have it with HTML viewing, which is kind of interesting because while doing this today, I found something that I didn't expect. So let's go over here. I do that, local host, right? So there we go. Now I have to try and see this from across the screen because this is in front of me. So can we see anti-gravity on here? Anybody see that? Let me try this. There we go, now I can see it. I'm not sure why this is here, but this was a little Easter egg that I found that when I open this up, it brings you the XKCD comic about Python. So this gives you an idea of the geek sense of humor, right? I find this amusing. And again, all of us here have this sense of humor. So, and this is one of the best comics. If you haven't seen this comic, get on there now. It's also, there's another one about saving the world with Perl, and that was near and dear to my heart because I get made fun of a lot for being a Perler. So that being said, we're gonna come back. Did I just close Hangouts? Sorry, Google. Join Hangout. Let's see if I can do that. You're about to join a Hangout on air, and yes, I have agreed to the terms. I'm gonna stand here because no one wants to see an up close of my mug. And joining, am I getting there? Probably have to do that whole screen share thing again. Well, I had the camera muted. Is that better? There is no such thing. It didn't let me join. So let me try that again. Now I'm there. That's weird. I see myself. It's kind of like one of those things in the mirror on TV, right? So, all right. There we go. We'll mute the camera to stop that. And I will let this gentleman do that. So do we have any questions? Let's take this quick minute while we're looking at XKCD. Relaxed, right? We're waiting for it to compile, right? The old joke. Any questions so far? Go ahead. Move it up so you can see it on the top half. I'm going to the scroll the page. Let me get over here. Just need to come back to this. This is the, there it is. Did we do the screen share back? Where's the screen share? We had to go to that second page. This guy right here. I'm off again. Yep, we got the page. All right, so we have solved technical difficulties. This is the great thing of coming to a tech conference. We're never at a loss for solving it, no matter how many problems pop up, right? Yeah. So again, this struck my funny bone while I was exploring and looking at things, making sure I had some cool stuff, and this popped out there. No, I am not going to start flying. I don't have that power. So we're going to come back to here. Over to this window. Am I in the center of that bar? I don't want to close my presentation because that would be fun. All right. So PyDoc, again, we can explore. So all the libraries that are available as standard libraries are on there, all the different functions. So if you just want to explore and go looking and you're not really keen on going with the command line, go through the web page. There's also, of course, python.org has stuff. We'll get to that here in a second. Now, where do we go to from here, right? This is all very simple stuff. So we're not going much further. We're at an 80,000 foot view today because geared this towards true beginners in Python who've never seen it. People who were like me about, 8 months ago when I started my job, because I had never really touched it. And that's why this is the Python Padawan, because I had to come up to speed immediately. Because if my first day was jumping into a couple of small projects, I started using speed test CLI, which isn't a project at work, but how many people run a little headless router at their house with Linux or BSD, some variant? Okay, so if you ever get asked that question, well, can't you just unplug and plug your computer directly in and check the speed, right? None of us want to do that, and they won't actually check it for you. This is a Python application written for the command line that will do the speed test through UCLA, your typical standard going to your speedtest.net. So if you need a speed test, here you go. I have run this on an Edge Router Lite in Viata. I have run this on OS X. I have run it on Fedora. It works pretty much anywhere where you have a Python environment. So this is a handy little tool. And that's actually a link. So when you go online later and look at my presentation through the Self website, all of these take you to these projects. Yes? No, it's just a Python script. If you have a working, all this requires is a working Python environment. You get that, you're done. Matter of fact, I go back to my thing here. I tried to leave an example up. Nope, it's the presentation itself. Yes, sir? Remember to repeat the questions. So the question was, do you need to have a open firmware that will run that speed test? The answer is no. You only need a working Python environment. And we're going to go ahead and kill this off. By the way, if you're working in Python 3, just be aware that you have to do PyDoc 3. Forgot to mention that. Almost everything you see with Python, it's going to be Python, the regular. This is for right now. I believe is it Fedora 23 that we're taking native Python 3, maybe? I'm not going to speak to that, but the distributions are slowly upgrading. So Python 3 is available, and once everybody has moved up, Python 3 will be your default. Because this actually, what this is when you type Python, it's actually just a symlink. So, right? So you should see, yep, the Python 2. So Python 3 goes to your most recent version of Python 3. And you'll see that a lot in libraries too. I kind of started chuckle to myself when I first started this because there were libraries that were something dash Python dash something dash Python 3, Python dash something dash Python, because people are trying to maintain both. And it's confusing. So this naming convention is kind of stuck as you go through. Obviously, if your environment defaults to Python 3, Python's going to work for you. So just be careful. If you see weird things that don't make any sense when you're trying to run your script, just check what your default environment is. I see a question in the back. We'll stop for that. I think the question is, when do I think that we're going to move from Python 2 to Python 3? And I think one of the comments in the crowd is kind of apropos. I'm not personally sure because it's been out for quite a while. The big change is there are changes to lists, iterators, how string and input is taken. There's actually, I've got a link at the end of the presentation to all the different changes between Python 2 and 3. And I think the big challenge to adoption is a lot of the big projects are still on Python 2. So if you default bundle Python 3, those projects are going to be incompatible out of the box, and they're working toward it. I know that the Bugzilla project is working toward that as well. I've seen that. I know Anaconda, which is the specific project I work on, we're working on the port to Python 3. So that's happening. So you have to see all these projects that are part of every major distribution line up and move to Python 3 so that adoption isn't going to be a pain point for the person using the computer to get decide. And I think that's more when it's going to change. Like your personal project, you put that magic in there, you know, shebang, Python 3, you're going to get Python 3 in your project. You can use it just fine. The real concern is in old code. So if you say, I want to start working on this project that I love it, I want to contribute to it, I want to make it better, then you have to make yourself aware, is it a Python 2 or Python 3 project? And if you're really a masochist, you can say, you know what, I'm a new programmer, but I'm going to go figure out the differences and help them port it. That's a great way to learn, actually, is to try and figure out where things broke, because you will never spend so much time reading the manual as trying to figure out the upgrade from one language version to another. So it's not really an answer I think you wanted, but that's kind of where we're at as developers. We're waiting to see when that's going to take mass effect. Anyone else here have a better answer for that? Because I know there's a few people in here who I know have been doing this for a long time, specifically with Python. A few days after Perl 6, yeah. Well, you know, Duke Nukem did come out, so let's keep going. Oh, about the conversation. So someone was teasing me again on my Perler ways, saying that Perl 6 is going to come out when Perl 6 happens, and someone pointed out that supposedly in December Perl 6 will be out. So I haven't seen that because I've had my head buried with Python. Oh, at least. Yeah, well, basically, from my understanding, it's security backports and some of the better features. Just like, I mean, Perl 5 has so many Perl 6 features at this point. It's the same idea. They're not going to leave developers out in the cold because there are projects that use it that are major projects, and they need it. So Anaconda installer, again, that's what I work on. So every time you install Fedora, RHEL, CentOS, Scientific Linux, any of the variants that are, any of the RPM variants that are based on those, that's what I work on, and that's all written in Python. There are some bindings to C where we need to use C for efficiency's sake or for sake of the hardware it's going to run on, but it's pretty much pure Python. So, and there's a side library to this that I didn't include on this slide called Blivit, which is all a device handling library that talks to libblockdev. Now, for those of you who are artists, any artists in the room, digital artists, anybody? Anybody? No. Well, out there on Google Hangouts, you can write your scripts for Blender this way. So if you want to automate your scenes, your texture applies, you can do it in Python. If you are a small-time sysadmin, like I have been for a long time, Duplicity is a simple Python shell script that wraps around rsync that lets you do backups. So it's not very high-tech, it's not extreme, but it gets the job done, it's efficient, and it's easy to use. Again, simple things that Python writers have come up with. Ansible, if you really need a lot more in terms of system orchestration, Ansible is pure Python. There's another Python project. Again, just a couple of things, just to give you an idea of what you contribute to. Boto, this is one that my friend David recommends. Amazon Web Services API. I used to actually write a lot of Amazon Web Services back when I was doing web development. If I was doing Python, there's a pretty solid API for doing that. And there are APIs for everything you can think of. I could have stood here with slides for a while with all the cool stuff that's out there. But if you can imagine it, it's out there. I mean, There are books on data science. There are books on scientific uses. If you want some more reading, Python main website is an awesome place. They have documentations and tutorials for both Python 2 and 3. So if you have deeper questions as you dig into this, great place to go. Obviously on IRC, there's also the Python channel, right? This is a link just for people at home. They want to go directly to the PEP 8. That's your Python conventions, things like spacing, which, you know, we haven't addressed an elephant in the room. How many people here have heard this? Python is terrible because white space is significant. All right, so we're going to address the elephant in the room because I think I have maybe a little more time. Well, I keep hearing clapping in the background and going, am I really that far over? It's next door that's clapping, okay. So I actually prepped a little demo for this, right? So we're gonna do white space 01. I can see, right? Is it 01 or 0123 or ABC? Okay. And this is why you need standard nomenclature, so you don't do this to yourself up in front of a group of people. So we're gonna go ahead and do without the caps. 01A, right? Same thing we're used to. This is taken from another thing we did earlier with names. Simple enough, right? There it is. 2 lines in our function. Not a big deal. We do the same thing. So we're going to look at this again. That's actually got a bad spacing on it because my system corrects for it, but you can see there's a tab there. It's going to freak out. This is in Python 2. Indentation error, unexpected indent. Somewhat useful. If you've never written in Python before, that might confuse you, but that's it. Now, another difference, as I said, I was going to show you some more things in Python 2 and 3. Some error handling stuff got improved. So now, when you're a first timer, you're going to see inconsistent use of tabs and spaces and actually have a clue of what you just did to yourself if you don't know. So again, this is one of the benefits. If you're going to start a new project, start at Python 3, right? Because this is one of the other benefits we get is a much better error system. And I saw this in tests as we're testing our upgrade to Python 3 for Anaconda at work. So that's the PEP. We're also, there's a direct link. There's a whole page of changes. So again, we've hit a couple of them, right? Lists, or sorry, the way we print out strings, some of the error handling. There's another cute little thing that we're not going to go into because those examples get a little in depth. The map function, which lets you map values to a function and then print them out as a list. It used to be a list, right? We defined a list statically. We said square bracket, list of items, square bracket. Map would do that for you. In Python 3, it's an iterator. So it's no longer a list. So if you had something using lists in Python 2 and you convert to Python 3, you have to go find every single spot where you had that list and change it to use an iterator instead. So when you iterate over the loop. Again, just little differences we've got. And then here's the thing. I actually got started programming with Python to teach my 10-year-old. So if you have kids and you want to figure out a good book to get them started on, because I don't know about you, but I don't let my 10-year-old go on the web by himself. So this is a great way to get them started. And I will attest to that. There's a link to it. And the ISBN, that's on the No Starch Press website. Buy it from whatever vendor you like. I know that's it was a hot topic last year. I had some folks asking why I bought from certain vendors, and so I'm not going to go there this year. Now, do we have any more questions? This was kind of 80,000 foot, and I didn't see very many beginners. So this is probably all base stuff, right? Questions, comments? No? I know there's probably somebody sitting out there in the Hangout going, but I have questions. So, all right. Well, I'm going to leave this with the last thing I always say. Always code as if the person who ends up maintaining your code is a violent psychopath who knows where you live. And that's the beauty of Python, right? It enforces us to write with proper indentation, proper spacing. And this isn't as apropos, but it's my favorite quote. This is an oldie but a goodie. It's from John F. Woods on Complang C++ from the 90s. So when I got started, long time ago, I've kept it forever because my roommate was that psychopath. So thank you, everybody. And if you have any questions, other stuff more advanced, come on up. Again, this was supposed to be an 80,000-foot view of the language. And I promise next year, I will try and do something a little more advanced with Ruby and possibly Python. So thank you for coming. I hope everybody has a great rest of your conference.
Citrix Zen Server gives you everything you need to integrate, manage, and automate a virtual data center, all on an enterprise-class, cloud-proven virtual platform, and at a third of the cost of other solutions. But why even bother with virtualizing your server infrastructure in the first place? Well, let's say you have a traditional one server to one application architecture, but you're running out of resources and performance is suffering. Once you order new server hardware, you'll wait for delivery. Configure it, install your business application, stage and test the server, and finally, add it to your production farm. If you've been through this process before, you know it can take weeks or even months. You also know it's a manually intensive
Your customers rely on your website or application. If it's slow or non-responsive, it infuriates your users and costs you money. Keeping your business-critical systems humming along requires insight into what they're doing. Your system metrics tell stories that can reveal performance bottlenecks, resource limitations, and other problems. But how do you keep an eye on all of your system's performance metrics in real time and record this data for later analysis? Enter Longview, the new way to see what's really going on under the hood. The Longview dashboard lets you visualize the status of all your systems, providing you with a bird's-eye view of your entire fleet. You can
Citrix Zen Server gives you everything you need to integrate, manage, and automate a virtual data center, all on an enterprise-class, cloud-proven virtual platform, and at a third of the cost of other solutions. But why even bother with virtualizing your server infrastructure in the first place? Well, let's say you have a traditional one server to one application architecture, but you're running out of resources and performance is suffering. Once you order new server hardware, you'll wait for delivery, configure it, install your business application, stage and test the server, and finally, add it to your production farm. If you've been through this process before, you know it can take weeks or even months. You also know it's a manually intensive process that will burden your team every time you outgrow your current setup. With a virtual server solution, you could accomplish all of that in less than half a day. Server virtualization software separates the OS and application from the underlying server hardware. And with multiple virtual machines on a single server, you can use each of them to run different OSs and applications. This makes it possible to move your virtual machines from one piece of hardware to another whenever you want, to maximize utilization, simplify maintenance, or recover from a hardware failure, and without slowing down your applications or users. Clearly, server virtualization provides big benefits, and Citrix Zen Server provides even more. Since it's built on an open platform, Zen Server plays well with your existing hardware, storage systems, and IT management software, as well as with the industry's leading cloud service providers. Best of all, you can get started by downloading a fully functional, production-ready version of Zen Server for free. After a 10-minute installation process, you'll see how easy it is to start virtualizing your workloads and automating your IT management processes. And when you're ready for a richer set of management tools, just upgrade to one of the premium editions of Zen Server. So whether you're interested in virtualizing servers for the first time, expanding your server virtualization footprint, or moving server workloads to the cloud, download and install Zen Server today and see how it can help you simplify your IT environment. Citrix Zen Server. Do more. Don't spend more.
Your customers rely on your website or application. If it's slow or non-responsive, it infuriates your users and costs you money. Keeping your business-critical systems humming along requires insight into what they're doing. Your system metrics tell stories that can reveal performance bottlenecks, resource limitations, and other problems. But how do you keep an eye on all of your system's performance metrics in real time and record this data for later analysis? Enter Longview, the new way to see what's really going on under the hood. The Longview dashboard lets you visualize the status of all your systems, providing you with a bird's-eye view of your entire fleet. You can sort by CPU, memory, swap, processes load, and network usage. Click a specific system to access its individual dashboard, then click and drag to zoom in on choke points and get more detail. Comprehensive network data, including inbound and outbound traffic, is available on the Network tab, and disk writes and free space on the Disks tab, while the Process Explorer displays usage statistics for individual processes. The System Info tab shows listening services, active connections, and available updates. Adding Longview to a system is easy. Just click the button, copy the one-line installation command, then run the command on your Linux system to complete the process. The agent will begin collecting data and sending it to Longview. Then the graphs start rolling. Use Longview to gain visibility into your servers, so when your website or app heats up, it stays up.